Faith and Failures podcast.
Yeah.
So you said you had this baby.
Yeah.
Kind of pick up from there.
Okay, yeah. So 14 and pregnant. I was 5 days after I turned 15, I become a mom. At that time, no one recommended abortion to me. Praise the Lord. I didn't even, I'll just say, I don't even know that I knew what an abortion was at that time. And so yeah, 15 years old, barely 15, I became a mom. Because of being in and out of the system so much and in and out of school so much, I was only in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
And so I was in 8th grade, middle school in Tyler, Texas, as a mom.
Wow.
Yeah, that was something.
You were an instant celebrity.
Yeah.
Everybody knew your business.
All the parents wanted their friends to come, their kids to come stay at my house, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, but for my 15th birthday, my mom signed for me to get married to my daughter's father. And so what that did, though, it's so dumb. Don't do that. First, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't let your children live with their boyfriends at 13, 14. Just don't. But if that's the situation, yeah, she signed for me to get married. But what that did in Texas is it made me a legal adult. And so,
really?
Yeah, because I was married, I was now basically my husband's property. And so I was able to work. I was able to get an apartment, things you can't do normally at 15.
Yeah.
And so.
Is that still law today?
I mean, as far as I know, I don't know.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Because I was no longer considered a minor. I was married.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's serious.
So yeah, my husband and I only stayed married together. We actually stayed married for over 10 years, but that's because we just never got divorced. We only lived together as husband and wife for 4 months after we got married.
Shocking.
But it rescued me out of my home. I had an apartment. I had a job, and I was a mama.
So what did you do for a job then?
I went to work at Juicy's Hamburgers in Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
It actually just opened. I still love it today.
Yeah.
A great, great owner. He was so kind to me. I had to, it was just, I don't know what he thought. I was a mess. Excuse me. But he hired me at 15 years old, and I would walk to work from my apartment, which is about 5 miles away, walk to work with my daughter in her little stroller, and she would sit in the drive-thru while I'd work all day. And then at 9 o'clock at night, I'd walk home with my daughter in the stroller.
Wow.
Sometimes my husband would show up to pick her up, but usually not.
What was he doing this whole time?
I don't know. Drugs, other women, all the things,
all the mature stuff,
all the great things, which is why our marriage didn't last. I should have never married him. Okay, this is a funny story. On my wedding day, keep in mind, I am a child. Okay, I'm a child. I'm in my wedding gown, and the pastor comes in, and he was just a pastor we hired to marry us.
Yeah.
At a church in Tyler. And he comes in and he says, honey, I just met the groom. Do you want me to hold off a few weeks before I mail in the marriage certificate just in case things don't work out? I'm he was willing to do that. That should tell you something. And then in my mind, I remember thinking that could be a thing. But ultimately I thought, I have to do this. My daughter needs a dad. In my mind, very unhealthy relationships always patterned.
Absolutely.
And I was convinced that having a mom and a dad in the home was the best thing for my daughter. And so I married him.
Yeah. So was that the daughter you just ate lunch with?
No.
Okay.
That's my baby.
That's your baby. Yeah. Okay. So you have this first one at 15, and then you stay married for 4 months or live together for 4 months.
Yep.
But stay married for 10 years. So what were you
every other relationship between then until I married my husband today.
Yeah.
26 years almost. Yeah. So praise the Lord. There's redemption. And that, so there's a spoiler alert, there's happiness at the end, right? So don't get stuck in the junk.
Right.
But yeah, so just relationship after relationship. When my husband and I separated, I ended up immediately in another relationship. But this guy had a job and a car and a house. So those were 3 things that my husband never had, still today almost.
You automatically moved up. I mean,
so it's kind of a joke, but it was so real. He told me I had nice eyebrows. Okay, if you've ever had to draw, paint, tweeze, pluck, wax an eyebrow.
I say all the time, I'm so glad I'm not a woman.
I mean, that was a big compliment. And it is a joke, but let me just tell you girls, if it only takes a compliment, like saying you have a nice eyebrow, to get in the backseat of a Camaro, there's a problem. So.
Well, I mean, it was a Camaro. So.
It T-tops. It did. Like, there's some valid stuff there, but it was very unhealthy. I was so desperate. And again, like, I know this now, but I was so desperately trying to fill a Jesus-sized void in my heart that any man that gave me any kind of affection, I would give my whole heart to. Yeah. And so, ended up in this relationship, moved in with him very quickly, me and my daughter.
So how old were you and how old was he? If he already had this stuff, he had been working for it for a while.
Okay, well, so in all fairness, he started to work early, but then his dad had died and he inherited a home.
Okay.
So it's not so like he had, saved up for 10 years.
Okay, I was like, he was like in his 50s.
No, not that creepy. So no. He was just like, just a year older than me, maybe. So,
okay.
I mean, we were still young. I mean, like.
How old were you at this time, you said?
Golly, I couldn't have been more than 17.
Wow.
I mean, because after him, so much drama. This is like Montel Williams and Maury Povich and Oprah all like collided and had a baby, and that's where my story pops out. But so after that relationship, I'm working in the sex industry, and I wasn't old enough to drink.
How long were you with this guy?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 17 to 20, 3 years.
Yeah.
And you couldn't drink.
Yeah.
So was it immediately after? Were you working at the same restaurant, Juicy's, this whole time when you were with that guy?
Mostly, yeah. Yeah, so I worked there.
Why did you go into the industry?
So in that relationship I ended up pregnant, and that's when I had my first abortion.
With that guy.
Okay. Camaro guy. Nice eyebrows at the Camaro. It's the whole thing, girls.
It's a perfect combination.
I know. It was brokenness. And Camaro's T-top. It was a T-top Camaro.
T-top. Oh, man.
Like, come on. Give me a break. And I had nice eyebrows in his eyes. So it was a love potion.
What more can you do? At that point, you just had to give up and just fall for love.
And I was a child. So,
that is very true.
And so, I got pregnant with his child. And I loved being a mom.
Yeah.
And so I was so ecstatic that we were going to have a baby. And I just remember he came home from work, and I'm like just bubbling with joy to tell him that we're having this baby. And I'll just never forget. It was like the oxygen just sucked out of the room when I told him, and he just said, "I don't want to be a dad." And it was so Star Trek-y. Like, I was literally like, beam me up, Scotty. But I literally in that moment, it was like I was taken back to a scene in my life when my dad was in a drunken, roaring stupor, spitting in my face, telling me he wished I had never been born. And when this man with the Camaro and the compliments tells me he doesn't want my baby, our baby, I just knew. Like, it sounds so warped, and it's a lie from the enemy, and I own that today. But I swore I would never bring a baby into this world to feel, even for a moment, the way I had felt my whole life, unwanted. And so 3 weeks later, he drove me to Dallas, and I had my first abortion.
So he even took you.
Oh, yeah.
Was it his idea, or you said you wanted to do it and he just took you?
No. Well, I mean,
he didn't
want the baby, and so there was only one option, at that point, which is really dumb because adoption is very much an option. But in the mind...
Adoption is an option.
Adoption is the best option.
It should be the only option, but...
It should be. But in the mind, and it makes no sense, but in the mind of a crisis pregnancy situation... And although it wasn't technically a crisis, it felt very much crisis-like in that scenario. You cannot imagine, especially if you love being a mom already, right? Yeah. Like, you can't imagine, like, giving your baby away. But you can kill it.
Yeah.
That's okay, somehow. But...
I guess if you're never faced with it, actually...
Yeah.
I don't know. I still can't wrap my head around that, especially after we just had a little girl. And my wife, every now and then, she'd be like, I don't understand how anybody could ever kill a little baby like this. I mean, they almost, what is it, full term?
Oh, yeah.
Some of them try. Roe v. Wade got overturned, but I heard that they're trying to get a cruise ship. Did you hear about that?
No.
That's in international waters for abortions.
It doesn't shock me at all. And you can actually still have abortions in pretty much every state.
Yeah.
So the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned is good news, but it didn't eliminate abortion. Abortions happened before Roe v. Wade and they're happening post Roe v. Wade.
So explain that. You probably know more about this than I do, right? I mean, you probably a little bit.
I mean, maybe. What's the question?
So what changed then?
Well,
they say it's overturned. And they're like, women's rights, whatever. And then the other one's like, we finally overturned it. So what exactly overturned? Like, what has changed? If you can still get abortions.
Sure. So abortion on demand is ultimately, if I could say that loosely, is you can't just go anywhere and get an abortion at any stage. And it puts more power in the state. So like Texas has pretty significant rules. It has to be before a heartbeat can be detected, and there's different things.
Okay, some more parameters on
more
what
parameters.
You can't just go when you want.
You just can't go when you want.
Okay.
But I mean, you can still get an abortion all the way up through 9 months in some states. So it's not like you can't have an abortion.
California.
Yeah, Colorado, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, Colorado's very pro-abortion.
Really?
Yeah.
So that means they're more of a liberal state, I guess?
Oh, yeah.
Really? I don't know. Well, I guess my brother moved there just so he could smoke weed. So I guess that.
Well, you can smoke weed and just have abortion.
Yeah,
you want.
Why not? Whatever you want to hear.
Yeah.
But that's pretty crazy. I just wasn't 100% sure on what exactly got overturned and what was but I guess tighter parameters.
Tighter parameters and just like abortion on demand. You can't just go anywhere and have an abortion. And
so what's the next step after that? So he drives you to get an abortion.
Yeah, have an abortion. And then, again, stupid, doesn't make any sense.
Before you go any further.
Yeah.
What were you feeling after you actually came out of the clinic and did that?
It was horrible. It was instant regret. I mean, that's I could talk an hour on that whole thing, but it was absolute lies. My quote unquote counseling, mandatory counseling before my abortion at the clinic was this woman sitting in a room smaller than your studio, about the size of your desk, really, with both of us, smoking a cigarette, convincing me that I was doing the right thing because I didn't need to ever bring a baby into the world where the father didn't want it. Like literally using my own words as I'm crying out to her, trying to convince her that I don't want to have this abortion.
Also, when you were on the moment of it, you were trying to back up.
Absolutely, did not want to have it at all. Terrified, did not want to have the abortion. I knew I was already a mom. I knew that it was a baby. Like a lot of women my age or older in the abortion industry were told it wasn't a real baby. It was just tissue. It was a blob, whatever.
It is, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't have that excuse. I was already a mom. I knew it was a baby. I already loved my baby, but I chose to end its life anyways. So in my mind, again, not correct, but in my mind, I was protecting my baby from feeling the pain I had grown up with.
A child's justification on the maturity level you met. I mean...
Yeah. Nuts are not even developed.
Yeah, there he is.
So, like, there's no rational, logical processing.
So, now, you said you went to Dallas from Tyler, right?
Yeah.
And you went there. So, how was that drive home?
It was horrible. I still cannot go to Taco Bell without remembering. We stopped at Taco Bell on my way home. I was very, very sick from the medication and everything and from the procedure. And I ended up sick in the Taco Bell restroom for, I don't know, an hour afterwards. Yeah. And I just remember just literally almost like how gross is a Taco Bell bathroom, first off, but just literally hugging the toilet in the Taco Bell bathroom, crying.
So the stuff they gave you before they did the procedure makes you sick, or you just it's kind of everything?
Everything. Yeah. I mean, like, okay, so you got to keep, like, I don't want to be too graphic here, but you go into this clinic and you lay on this table, and it's like a herd of cattle, one bed after another. And the doctor comes in and literally, again, not to be too graphic, but literally sucks the baby out of womb after womb after womb. And you can hear it. Room.
You're awake.
I'm awake. Absolutely. You're awake.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And so they had given me something, Valium or something to calm my nerves, but you're awake through the whole process. I mean, you can literally feel the pressure in your abdomen when your baby is taken from your body. Like it's horrible. It's very traumatic. And so you go in a whole woman and you come out empty. Literally. And you cannot walk away from that unharmed.
So you never went to hear the heartbeat or anything of that, like the the new mother wants to go and exciting to get, so you never did any of that.
None of that. And in Texas at that time, it wasn't law. Now, if you go to have an abortion, well, and again, laws have changed a little bit since Roe v. Wade was overturned. But now by the time I had my second abortion, we'll get to that. It was actually law in Texas that you had to have an ultrasound before you can abort. And that sounds so great in the pro-life world. And you're like, yay, we know, because we know when a mother or a father sees that life, they recognize, oh my gosh, that's my baby.
Yeah.
And they are like, I forget the percentage, but like 93 or 97% less likely to carry through with an abortion if they see the life of the baby. So that's a huge win that you have to have an ultrasound before you can have an abortion. But there is no law that says you have to see the ultrasound. And I remember specifically, okay, this is a true story, Stephen. I am now having my second abortion. This was with a client from the sex industry.
Yeah.
And very different season of life. And I remember I'm laying on this, probably the same table or one very similar. And they had to do the ultrasound. And I asked the nurse, can I please see my baby? Again, I knew it was a baby. I wasn't deceived in that. And she says, no, honey, no, it's way too hard if you see. You just look the other way.
She knew. Man. So, okay. So you come home from Dallas. How long did you stay after the first abortion? How long did you stay with that guy? Was it kind of immediately that he was like, okay?
We stayed together almost a year. Our relationship was absolutely destroyed from the moment the abortion took place. Really, from the moment he said he didn't want to be a dad. But in the process of that, again, psycho, I became obsessed with getting pregnant again. Which, with
the same guy?
With the same guy. Okay, no frontal lobe, Stephen. Like, come on, stay away from me here. I'm a child.
I'm just like, really?
I know. It's so ridiculous. I'm telling you, Maury Povich and, Montel Williams had a baby and I popped out, but here we go. So like, it does not make sense, but I was so obsessed. I had to somehow right that wrong. And I was convinced, not that I was going to have the same baby. Like, I didn't have any kind of weird reincarnation, like I'm going to have the same baby. But I was convinced that if I could get pregnant again, it would right that wrong. That's not true. That's not healthy. But in my brokenness, that's what I thought. And I was so, like, there's, like, the scripture talks about the empty womb, not in this context, but there's something happens inside of a woman, mentally, psychologically, spiritually. An empty womb is just devastating. Yeah. And I had emptied my womb. And I had to fix that somehow. So I was obsessed with getting pregnant. Like, I've been taking my temperature, like obsessed with getting pregnant. Really? And it took me almost a year to get pregnant.
By the same guy?
By the same guy, okay. Camaro guy. And yeah, I know. And it's I was a child. I know. Like, I judge me, y'all. If you can feel the tension in this room. He's totally thinking I'm an idiot, which I was. But
you were a child.
I was a child,
and all children are idiots.
I mean,
that's why they should not be allowed to make any life decisions.
They should not. They should not allowed to be married or have children or
mutilate themselves.
Any of those things.
Nothing. Yeah.
Like, it's not okay because they don't know. Yeah. And these things are not reversible, right? All of the things we've talked about. So I end up pregnant finally with my son. I'm ecstatic to be pregnant. But guess what? He still doesn't want to be a dad, right? That didn't change in the process.
Well, hold on. Did he know that you were like acting like that, wanting to get pregnant?
Yes, he did, which is so dumb.
He didn't have an opinion about her?
I mean,
or just really voiced it?
I mean, well, he sure wasn't trying to not to, because I ended up pregnant.
Yeah, pregnant again, yeah.
So, I mean, that was the whole thing, right? Again.
Yeah. He was enjoying the car, but he didn't want to buy it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Very much so. But when I was 5 months pregnant with my son, I had spent the night with my sister, and I had come home and he was in bed with another woman. So yeah, it was a whole thing. While I was pregnant.
While you're pregnant. Okay. So he knows the baby's coming. Obviously you're 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
This may sound stupid and selfish, but then again, none of this really makes sense.
The whole thing is stupid. Yeah.
Some crazy people. So let's think crazy for a second. Did he do this on purpose so that you would leave?
I don't know. So it turns out I mean, because my great catch with the Camaro and the T-tops and all the things, he had been sleeping with women the whole 3 years we were together. Really? He had never been faithful, but I had such a warped idea. Like, it just took a compliment about my eyebrows to give me security. Like, that's how broken I was.
And a Camaro.
And the Camaro was nice because I didn't have to walk to work anymore. So, like that's just a thing. Like, I'm just being real.
Well, I mean, it's a thing that women, they desire security. And on the very basic level, he measured up to every standard that he probably has.
Any guy I'd ever had in my life. Like, he owned a home. Granted, his dad gave it to him, but that
counts.
It counts. He had a home in his name, and he had a car, and he had a job. Like,
and the car was a Camaro.
And the car was a Camaro, a red Camaro with T-tops. So,
oh my gosh!
I mean, I know, like you want his number, don't you?
if you got it, if you don't mind.
But yeah,
I mean, I understand that. So, how long after when you found him, when you came back from your sister's, did you stay with him?
No, that immediately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so apparently you can do all the things, but being in bed with other women, that was my cutoff point where I moved out.
I'm glad it was something.
Yeah.
I mean,
thankfully I had a line that was good. And so, I ended up moving in with my sister. Now, I mean, ultimately within a few months, a single mom of 2 kids.
Yeah.
And that's when I had a friend said, "Oh, you need to go to the gentleman's club. They're always hiring to get a job."
To get a job.
Yeah.
Hmm. Did they work there when they said?
No, they didn't work there, but they were obviously had some knowledge.
So, obviously, I'm thinking here. So, obviously, going to make money at a gentleman's club, I mean, women do it all the time, or the places will be empty. But how was it a more money type deal? Did you get coerced by somebody who says, "Hey, I'm making a little money doing this"? Like, how did you go from stripping to worse?
Yeah. So, good question. I started out, so again, like, and I know this does not sound probably plausible, but I had actually had a very sheltered life up until this point. Again, like, I didn't even know what abortion was when I had my first child. And I can just say that in that, when you have this much ugliness in your home, you have to keep it under wraps. Like, it can't be, like, it's very secretive.
Right.
So you don't go out. You don't do all the things. Like, I didn't know what a gentleman's club was at this point. And she's like, "You need to go to this gentleman's club. It's on 155.
Did you go apply where you didn't know what it was when you went?
I knew what it was technically.
You had an idea.
I had an idea. But I'd never been into one. I had never been into a bar at all. Any kind of bar.
Because you weren't old enough.
Wasn't old enough. I was not even.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they hired you even though you weren't old enough.
Yeah, you don't have to be. So I started out as a waitress.
Okay.
Because I could never take my clothes off for money, of course.
Right.
And then, because, like, yeah, whatever.
You have respect for yourself.
Respect for myself, and I could never do that. And, like, I remember walking in, and I had never been into any place like this. And there's, like, loud music and smoke, and
you said 155 at the time?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Before I
It's been there that long?
Yeah. It's closed now because of COVID. Praise the Lord.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't know COVID's over?
They do, but they just never.
I'm not trying to get it back. I'm not advocating. It's still going on. Don't tell them any different.
No, but yeah. So that's I walked in and I was escorted to the back by this big burly bouncer, and I walked in and like there was a desk kind of like here and a desk here, and there was stacks and stacks and stacks of money, and I thought. I'd never seen that kind of money ever.
Yeah.
And so I ended up being a waitress, and they kind of, snickered like, "We'll see how long that takes." And I was firm in my convictions. Right. And I started out as a cocktail waitress, very skimpy outfit, but I was covered.
Right.
And then you get into the lifestyle, and it's no longer a shock. I mean, you're very desensitized very quickly.
Yeah.
And the money's good. Like I could work 3 nights a week and provide for my kids. I was on no welfare.
For the whole month?
3 nights. Yeah. I mean, 3 nights a week for,
And that would take care of everything.
Yeah. And as a cocktail waitress. So and my kids were protected. And like, again, in my mind, I was worth sacrificing so that my kids weren't. Yeah. So my mom sacrificed me, and I refused to allow my kids in those same circumstances. So, So it was one night we had a after party. The owners came up and were like, "Hey, BJ, we're having a big after party, party tonight. All the big money men will be in. Will you dance just tonight?" And by this point, again, I was completely desensitized to the environment. I'm like, sure. They're like, there'll be lots of drugs, lots of alcohol. It'll be fun, and you'll make a lot of money. Yeah. And again, not to be too graphic, but by the end of my first set, I had not even taken off clothes yet, and I had over $1,000. And then I didn't waitress anymore after that. Wow. So yeah,
you were hooked.
I was hooked.
It's hard to turn away from good money like that. Yeah. Your family don't have to want for nothing.
Yeah. So, ironically, I've never met a rich stripper.
That's true.
Because you spend what you make, regardless of the convention.
That's true. When the making goes up, the spending goes up too. Because especially if you don't have money in the beginning, which is usually why you end up doing it. You're not doing it because, like, I want to graduate high school and strip. I mean, is really a life goal?
No. Girl thinks, someday I want to be a stripper and sell my body.
It's adult entertainment or adult dancing, or what is it?
Yeah, adult entertainment.
Adult entertainment, yeah.
Yeah.
So was it the money that drove you into going even further than that and making it into...
Yeah, so I would say I would have fought you to death that I was on a prostitute. Right. Because I did not take money for sleeping with men. I got my money on the stage, and then I just went home for free. So I didn't get my money. So, like, I know that's so dumb, right? But, like, I didn't get paid on a bedside table. Right. I got paid. And then I just chose who I wanted to go home with. But that's exactly what I was doing. I was selling my body.
But was it to customers or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But I would have, because I saw what we look at as prostitution with girls that were set up and they were literally paid for sex.
Right. Like walking the streets and things like that.
And even in the club aspect, right, they would sleep with men for drugs and all of that. And I would never do that. Yeah. But they would very much pay me, and then I would go home with them. I just got paid on the stage and went home with them for free.
So you lost on that one because you could have made one.
I might have. It was really, but.
So did you do drugs and drink and all this stuff when you were doing?
I drank a lot, and I smoked some weed. Yeah. But somehow the Lord, and I know that sounds real wonk, but somehow the Lord protected me. I almost did cocaine one time. And another dancer friend of mine was getting some cocaine, and the drug deal went down 3 times. It failed 3 times in the one night I was going to do drugs, hard drugs. And I promise you the Lord protected me
for sure
from that. And because like in the craziness of it all, I was a stripper, prostitute 3 nights a week. And then I was homeroom mom the rest of the
mom. Yeah.
Mom, I'm going to dress a little slutty, but I was mom, and so took care of my kids.
What did your regular life look like outside of that? Like, did you go to school function? Were your kids in school? Did they school functions?
Went to school in Tyler, and
Did people know what you did?
I mean, my family did. I didn't there wasn't social media there, but on my Facebook status, it wouldn't have been like, that's stripper like that now. But, yeah.
Put it on your LinkedIn.
No, that was a thing back then. So, no Instagram, no Snapchat. So, thankfully, again, I was protected from that. Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty public.
So after, or during your time when you started this, when you were 20, because you couldn't drink yet, how long did you stay in that field?
Oh, many years. It was actually, and even getting out of that industry, it took a long time. In fact, all the way, I don't love sharing this, but it's just true. But even up until I was married to my husband now, in those early years, I would always go back. I would get out and then go back. The hot water heater would bust. I'd go back, work at night.
Just easy money where you already get something right, but you knew you had a place.
And we ended up having a house fire, which is what brought us back to East Texas. And so back to the club I went because we had nothing. And my husband hated it. And somehow, it's just crazy. But I hated him for allowing me to do it. But at the same time, there is no way he could have told me not to, because I would have been like, you are not my daddy.
Yeah.
I had to provide for these kids. And I was a terrible wife. Why the Lord chose to protect our marriage or save our marriage through all of this horrible stuff, I don't know. I'm thankful that he did.
So, but not in between, but how does it overlap with you stripping? Was there a time where you found God and then you met your husband, or did you meet him before that and y'all found him together? How did that work?
Yeah, great question. No, we were living in sin, completely broken sinners trying to not hate each other and survive life. Got married.
While you were stripping?
While I was stripping.
So he knew about it? It wasn't like a...
Yeah, he knew about it. Now I would say, like he...
Or was he one of your customers?
No, no. Thankfully, he was not. Yeah, no.
How did y'all meet?
Yeah, fair question. But no, thankfully, that's never been a thing for my husband. Praise the Lord. So our families were friends.
Okay. And
it was actually at his sister's wedding that I was attending, where we reconnected. We had known each other for years, like from 10, 11 years old. We've known each other.
Really?
But we never dated or anything. And of course, he was at his sister's wedding. I was at his sister's wedding. And we just kind of started dating from there. And he was wild. He drank, partied. And honestly, it was never supposed to turn into anything. It was kind of
just a casual,
So he didn't care what I did.
You have 2 kids at this time?
I have 2, yeah.
When you got with him?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any more?
Yes, we had one.
Oh, y'all had one together?
We had one together. Yeah, that's what I had lunch with today.
Okay, that was the one.
Yeah, she's our flight attendant now, so
cool.
Living her best life. But
that'll be really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. But so we started out kind of a loose, casual relationship. He was living in Austin at that time and coming back every once in a while, and we'd spend the weekend together, and my kids would be gone and he'd come home, and I was still married to my husband at this time, through all of this, don't forget.
Oh, yeah, 10 years. Yeah, you just didn't live together. Okay, I forgot.
And so, basically, his huge thing for me, which won me over, so dumb, but valid, is he's like, I'm not dating a married woman. And I was like,
he had a line too.
Yeah, he had a line. It got blurry, but he had a line. And so that's when I finally got divorced from my
When he said
husband.
that, he said, listen, I'm not gonna... Okay.
Yeah.
So that was when it became something more than just casual.
Right.
That it was like, okay, this is going somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to not be married.
Yeah. And so we ended up moving in together. Again, I kind of got out of the industry, and I would only go back for financial crisis.
No, so what were you doing besides that now and then? Or he was working and you need to stay home?
And I would do, I was a waitress. I've worked at every restaurant in Tyler. I even went back to Juicy's for a while, worked at Applebee's. I was a manager of a CC's for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. I just job hopped. Nothing stable, no career for sure, but just whatever would pay the bills.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so y'all lived in Tyler?
Lived in Tyler. Yeah. Then we moved to Austin. Again, long story, not to bore anybody, but he ends up becoming a full-blown alcoholic. We almost don't survive that. He gets sober. We don't know the Lord through any of this. Right. He gets sober and basically says, I choose you and our kids over alcohol.
Now, what was the process of him getting sober? Was he that self-aware that he realized that he was going that far? Or what made him decide that, hey, this is I got to choose now? Yeah.
So it was actually a very intense night. He actually threatened to kill me. Keep in mind, so you don't know this, but my husband is just a gentle giant. Even in his worst of the worst alcoholism, he's a gentle giant. He's never once in 26 years called me a bad name. He's never cussed me ever. And he had gotten plastered drunk one night, and I had been sick, and he actually, I swear he was possessed. His whole countenance changed, and he put his hands on my neck and he said, I could kill you right now and no one would ever know. And the second that happened, he snapped out of it. He was back to himself and he broke. And he was very apologetic. And I had actually made plans to leave because I'm like, oh, heck no, I'm not doing this. Yeah. And he has never so much as yelled at me, much less laid his hands on me. And again, that's where my next line was, I'm not going to be with a man that would ever do that. And I made very strategic plans to leave. My escape route was in place, bags were packed, and my, at the time, she's actually my ex-mother-in-law, but we had remained close. She had come down for a visit, and she doesn't know, but my plan was to leave with her. Me and the kids were leaving with her to come back to Tyler. And so she's like, you can't go on a date, and I'll watch the kids. I'm like, this is not the plan. But in God's grace, I ended up on a date with my husband, and we're sitting in the back of his pickup truck, and he is just broken. And he said, please don't leave. I will never touch alcohol again. And I didn't believe him, but for whatever reason, I chose to stay. And he's been sober for 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Never touched alcohol again.
Wow. Now, yeah. So were you drinking and doing all that stuff at this time?
Oh, yeah. So in fact, that next year was probably the hardest year of our marriage because he was now sober. He'd been drunk since he was 12, pretty much. Wow. Drinking since he was 12. And so he didn't know how to, like, he was the life of the party. We were very social and we just had fun and all the things. And he didn't know how to be around people. And so my fun, super charismatic husband is like, like it was not fun at all. But then also because I wasn't kind of babysitting him, then I started drinking all the time. Thankfully, that was never my thing. And I didn't have a problem with alcohol. So very short-lived season. But, and I'll just be honest, again, in that moment, I was taunting him. Like, because I didn't think he could not stay sober. And
so you're just waiting for the straw to break the camel's back. And it's like, whatever, he's going to do.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Like, we're not going to make it a week, much less a month or a year or 20 plus years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you got out of that industry after y'all were married or was it before? A little bit before?
Yes and no. So I was technically out of the industry, I guess, but I would just go back when needed, like if we had a financial crisis, whatever. But for the most part, I didn't work in the industry anymore.
And
once we got married, no, he hated it.
Oh. But he wasn't going to tell you what to do.
I mean, he might have tried, but it wasn't going to do any good. And I was a terrible wife. Like biggest regret. I was a terrible wife. I was so independent, and I was like, you just got to understand, like I was hardened. First off, at this point, I had sold myself numerous times. I had been sold my whole life. I had no value of who I was. And I had lost 2 children by abortion by this point. Like I was empty emotionally. So I had nothing to give him. I was awful. Why he loved me, I don't know. But God, like I could just say God had a bigger plan. And so he gets sober. We end up moving back to East Texas. And because of a house fire, and I'm back at the club again, and I hated it. And I hated him because I'm like, what kind of man lets his wife do this? But then I'm like, what kind of little man don't let her do this? Like, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
But just randomly, I got a call from our neighbor who owned the tea house in Bullard, a Hidden Gardens tea house, and they knew I had waitressing experience. I didn't know where. And they offered me a job. I didn't know. I know, right? It's so crazy. And
you don't put that on your resume.
No, I didn't. And so I ended up accepting this position at this little tea room. So literally on Saturday night, I'm selling my body on a stage. And then Tuesday morning, I'm serving little chicken salad sandwiches to sweet little old ladies at the tea room in Bullard. That was culture shock.
I bet.
But that's really where I will say that I recognized the Lord was pursuing me. He had been pursuing me all along. I was just shutting the door.
Yeah.
But everyone that worked at the tea house, the people that owned the tea house were very much Jesus-loving, Bible-believing Christians, and they just began to love me. And I'll just tell you, Stephen, when you, for the first time, literally in your life, get a glimpse of genuine, pure love, there's no drug that can match that. And it was the best thing. And so they began to just love on me, and they eventually invited me to church. I didn't go right away, but then again, they invited me again, and I ended up going to church and ultimately surrendering my life to the Lord, and that changed everything. And about, I don't know, maybe 3 months later, my husband surrendered his life to the Lord. And we kind of joke now that...
Was that a struggle? when you were going to church stuff and you wasn't?
It was, because if you would have asked us at any point in that time, we would have said we were Christians. I mean, we lived in East Texas, for crying out loud. We lived in the Bible Belt.
Everybody's a Christian.
Everybody's a Christian. Like, duh.
Yeah.
You know, like, we live in Tyler. Of course we're Christians. Of course.
It's true.
It's true. So, and I also, like, I will say sincerely, I don't remember ever a time, like, I knew all the stories.
Yeah.
I believe Jonah was swallowed by the big fish. I believe that Jesus died on the cross. Like, I knew the things and I believed them, but I was not a Christian. I had head knowledge of some biblical facts, but I was not trusting in the Lord for anything, much less my salvation. So when I surrendered my life to Christ and I realized all of it, like I was different. And I was like, oh crap, my husband's going to hell. And so like, I became like, he takes this like extreme personality, right? And I'm like all in.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, basically to get him to church.
Yeah.
And
did he have any church background at all?
He did. So like, yeah, so his grandfather, an amazing Baptist minister, that's who married us.
Okay.
Like you look in a dictionary and it says like, you know, pastor's wife, and his grandmother's picture as what you're going to see. Like, she was like, seriously, the perfect little family, loved Jesus, amazing stability. And he would spend summers with them every year. Now, his other home life, not always the greatest, but he had amazing Christian life, family that was influencing him. So again, he thought he was a Christian too. He would have, we would have, like, granddaddy's a Baptist preacher. I'm a Christian.
Start naming all the Christian people you know and the Bible stories.
Like, you know the things, you know.
I've read Jonah
7, of course. You know, like he had some disciples, like they were, you know, homeboys, whatever. So like we would have, like we knew, you know, but we were very much not. We were so lost.
Yeah.
No fruit of Christianity, of course, but I mean, what's fruit? Like, we didn't care. We didn't know that. We didn't know that piece wasn't right.
Well, yeah, no. We didn't read
that story, but no relationship whatsoever.
Yeah.
Faith and Failures Podcast.